Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys, brought to you by the National Hockey Now Network. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by National Hockey Now, Friday, May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo, for those of you that celebrate that. Welcome to another edition of the show. It's Ian Cameron with you. No Alex B. Smith today, a little under the weather. He'll be back tomorrow. Jimmy Murphy, our Friday guest, Boston Hockey Now's finest, does a great job, of course, there. Will be joining us momentarily. I do want to take the moment to mention that National Hockey Now is growing. There's a lot of brand new writers being hired onto the site covering various NHL teams. So make sure you're checking out nationalhockeynow.com and all the subsequent team sites in the Hockey Now network, because I am definitely seeing the growth with the Hockey Now network and new writers, new team sites launching over the last few days and the last week. So again, a great source of hockey info, hockey news, team news. It's a great site to help keep you up to date with every NHL team. And believe it or not, I use the Hockey Now websites every day, in terms of, finding out injuries and, just in-depth analysis and opinions from people that are right on top of things, covering these teams on a daily basis all season long. So it's a great website. It's a great resource to keep in touch with everything that is NHL related. So again, check that out. That's at nationalhockeynow.com. And of course, Jimmy Murphy, one of the great writers at Hockey Now, will be joining us momentarily, our good friend, to talk Devils, Hurricanes, as well as the Bruins. Let's look at last night. And for last night, we obviously have to start with the Florida-Toronto game. And let's do a little Barry Horowitz here. A little pat on the back for yours truly in terms of how to attack this game. And man alive, did I ever make the right fucking decision in terms of how to attack last night's Panthers-Leafs game 2 from a betting perspective. Couldn't have scripted it any better in terms of the way I thought that game would start. Toronto flying out of the gate, all over Florida, drew them into a couple of penalties, got the 2 early goals to take a 2-0 lead, get that crowd right into it immediately. And it sure looked like we were, at least in the first 5 to 10 minutes of game 2 last night, we looked like we were going to get a carbon copy of game 2 for Toronto from the Tampa Bay series in the first round, where the Leafs are just going to roll to a comfortable home victory, tie up the series, and all of a sudden things are going to be good from there. But when you look at it, obviously, and Toronto had an incredible first period. I mean, they really did. They had an outstanding period. Florida didn't really do much. Unfortunately for them, it looked like a harmless play. The puck gets chipped into the Toronto zone. Tavares blows a tire behind the net. And that screws up the entire play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Everybody a little bit out of position, slow to react, and a beautiful backhand feed from Sam Reinhart to Anton Lundell in front of the net to get that first Florida goal. And right then and there, I said to myself, you know what? Toronto's only up 2-1. And I was hoping like hell they would still be up 2-1 after the first period. We ended up having to hang on for the puck line in the first period, but they did end up taking a 2-1 lead to the intermission. But at the intermission, I said to the friends of mine I was watching the game with, I said, this isn't a good feel for the Leafs right now. They completely dominated that period, and they're only up 2-1. And worst of all, Florida got the last goal with a little momentum now going into the first intermission. But so I was concerned at that moment. That being said, thrilled with the way we analyzed this game yesterday on the show as far as Toronto coming out strong. I was very confident they would, and we attacked it multiple ways there. We had Toronto team total over 1.5 at plus 200 in the first period. It was so good to cash that. And, of course, the first period puck line was the best bet winner for me on the show yesterday, -0.5 at plus 130. And I said, you know what? And kind of jokingly at the time, after the first period ended, I put on Twitter that, the Leafs can do whatever the fuck they want now. Their work is done as far as I'm concerned. They got my first period team total and first period puck line. They got it done for me in those two with those two bets. Whatever happens now happens. Whatever they want to do with the rest of this game, they can do. Sure as shit did I had no idea that would end up being what turned out to be a disastrous start to the second period for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I can't even explain how bad it was. It was horrific the way the Leafs came out to start the second period. Slow, lackadaisical, nonchalant, garbage fucking puck management from and the worst part of it all for Toronto last night, it was garbage puck management from their best players. Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews in particular. Nylander, too, made a couple of really ridiculous, type of plays with the puck last night. It was absolutely deplorable, to see Toronto just so wayward with the puck, and it was their best players. It was their higher-priced talent that ended up letting them down with these soft, candy-ass, fucking garbage, bullshit, puck, giveaways through the neutral zone, giveaways at your own blue line, trying to do fancy schmancy shit. And it ended up in the back of their net not once, but twice in the first 2 minutes of the second period. And a 2-1 lead disappeared. It became 3-2 in favor of the Florida Panthers. And right then and there, certainly you could tell the arena was deflated. The life came out of it. Not that Toronto's home building is full of life to begin with, but whatever life it did have, certainly it ended up, coming out of the air out of the balloon, if you will, for the Scotiabank Arena faithful. And it really took Toronto almost the entire second period to get their game back. Florida was really taking it to Toronto after they went ahead 3-2. And it really wasn't until early in the third that we started to see the Leafs start to be more assertive, controlling the play like they did early in the game. But by then it was 3-2 Florida. By then, a lot of the momentum had been stunted. And, I said this when they got knocked out by Montreal 2 years ago. And I remember people were saying, wow, at Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Tavares, the core four that have been here for years, I talked about, people were trying to make excuses for them and say, well, they had a bunch of chances, they had a bunch of shots, and even though they didn't score much or produce offensively in that series, they had their chances, they had their opportunities, they at least generated, opportunities to score goals, and the puck was just not going in. And then I'm hearing kind of the same thing last night. Well, they had their chances. We saw Nylander, Tavares, Matthews. They all had a ton of shots on goal. They had a ton of chances. But you've got to be clinical now. You got to be surgical, and you've got to find a way to bury these chances. You've got to finish. You've got to produce. This isn't the we tried hard league. This isn't the we generated chances league. Oh, we got shots on goal league. Yeah, you're going to win the game because you had shots on goal. You're going to win the game because you had chances. No, you have to put the fucking biscuit in the basket, period. So, and it's the same thing I said 2 years ago when they got embarrassed by the Montreal Canadiens in the first round. I don't give two shits about any chances you had, any shots you had, hitting the post a couple of times. No, put it in. Score. Find a way. You're some of the most talented, skilled players in the NHL, and you're definitely the most talented, skilled players on this hockey team when I'm talking about Nylander and Marner and Matthews and Tavares. Put the thing in the freaking net. I don't want to hear about these chances we had and these posts that we hit and these fucking shots on goal that we had. No, finish. You got to score. If you're going to be a Stanley Cup champion, you got to take advantage of your opportunities. Florida was opportunistic last night. They didn't have a shit ton of chances, but they put the puck in the net when they got their chances. And obviously a big part of the story as to why the Leafs didn't finish their chances was goalie Bob, who was once again phenomenal in that game. There's no question about that. He was very good in goal for the second straight game in this series. I don't care how good the other goalie is. If you want to win, you've got to score more than 2 goals. You can't score 2 goals in the first 5 minutes of the game and then nothing from that point on. You've got to finish. You've got to produce, okay? You don't get participation ribbons in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We participated. We got shots on goal. We got chances. No. You got to put the puck in the net. You've got to finish your chances. Leafs didn't do a good enough job of that in the third period. So all this nonsense I'm reading and hearing and that, well, the Leafs had a great third period, great first period. Should have won the game. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, didn't. Okay? And absolutely inexcusable, inexplicable, disgraceful, embarrassing, horrendous. First 2 minutes to that second period cost them that game with puck management, with candy-ass giveaways and turnovers in their own blue line, at their own blue line. Stuff that can't be tolerated in October in an early regular season game, let alone game fucking 2 of the second round. Soft as butter. The whole lot for making little fancy dangle plays like that. Soft, not hard on pucks. That's what that was. That's what that second period monstrosity to begin the period was from the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's what it was. And again, other things I want to point out about the Leafs too from last night. Sam Bennett, and credit to him, I don't know if anything he did was suspendable. He did get fined for the bunting thing where he was cross-checked him, and that was pretty vicious. And what he did to Matthew Nyes during the game was pretty vicious, and Leaf fans are up in arms that Bennett should have got suspended for that with the rock-bottom wrestling-type maneuver that he had on Matthew Nyes, which is actually now, as we found out earlier today, resulted in a concussion for Matthew Nyes, who left the game last night. He didn't return after that concussion and is now going to be out for at least the next 2 games here in this Leafs-Panthers series. But I don't know if you could say, like, Bennett was definitely trending on the line and maybe crossing it a bit with the bunting stuff. I get that. I personally wouldn't have been shocked by or disagreed with a 1-game suspension, but he did get fined. I don't know what you can do with the Nyes play because there's nothing in the rule book that says, what do we do when a guy gets, kind of slammed like that? There's not really, and it wasn't direct to the head contact. It was just a hard type of, like a wrestling body slam. That's what it was. There's not really anything that states that, oh, you've got to be suspended for doing something like that. So it's a tough spot, and at the end of the day, Bennett's gotten off unscathed. He will play in game 3, and that's the thing. I mean, it's unfortunate that Nyes gets hurt, but there's no such thing in the rule book as you're getting suspended because you have a body slam on someone. It's hard physical play, fringe of, I don't want to say dirty, but, extreme, vicious. It's certainly vicious. That's the word, vicious. I don't know about dirty, but it was vicious. The physicality from Sam Bennett. So at the end of the day, he doesn't get suspended. If you're a Leaf fan, you can't cry that that's the reason you lost the game. And there's, again, apologists. I mean, the apologists are nauseating. That the Sam Bennett not getting a thing for any of the, transgressions in the eyes of Leaf fans that he had on the ice last night was why they lost that game. No, 2-minute fucking soft as butter puck management from your best players, your most highly paid players, is why you lost that game. That lapse, that not being ready to start the second period. What the hell what the hell were they thinking? Seriously, this high-priced talent, this core 4, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, what were they thinking? Wow, we just had this amazing first period. We're leading this game. Our work's done. We can fuck off right now. We can slough off. We can fall asleep. We can do a little dipsy-do and, dingle dangles through the neutral zone and at our own blue line. And we can try to play this fancy-ass, crap-ass style of hockey in the playoffs when you got to be hard. You've got to be physical. You've got to be strong on the puck. We can do that. We're up 2-1. Our job's done. We're going to win this hockey game. Doesn't work that way. And the Florida Panthers, if there's anything they've shown you in these playoffs, so they're a resilient team. They don't give up. They don't give an inch. They don't quit on a game. Even as bad as that first period was for them, we saw it again last night. Resilient group. And they came back on you. And they made you pay the ultimate price for falling asleep and getting cocky and getting arrogant because you played 20 fucking good minutes of hockey, which is what we saw last night. Absolutely awful loss for Toronto. Awful. Because that's a game that could have went the other way, but they decided, we've already done enough to win the hockey game after the first period, and they paid the price for it. They paid the price for it. Simple as that. But give this Panthers team credit, man. Now, I want to talk about them now a little bit here. because what they have done here in the playoffs, they've now won 5 playoff games in a row, going back to game 5, first round against Boston. They're getting different contributions every night. Like I say, they're playing hard physical hockey. They are taking the body. They are adding physical miles of a bigger and greater toll to every Leaf player with that physical brand of hockey. And it's been impressive to see. And you know what's something, too, about the Leafs and why I said they're soft last night in that game? And it's not just, the giveaways and the turnovers early in the second period that led to that game turning completely around in favor of the Florida Panthers. It's that, Bennett was doing that, overly vicious, physical display of physicality, whether it was Nyes or whether it was Bunting. And there's not a single Leaf that did anything about it. Did anybody confront Bennett and say, hey, don't do that, or get in his grill, or, maybe want to go after him or something? Nobody did. And that's disappointing, because that was supposed to be something that was addressed by Kyle Dubas with this hockey team. It was supposed to have been addressed when you brought in a Jake McCabe and a Luke Shen and some other, and Nola Chari and some other guys that were going to give you that sandpaper and that pushback that, hey, if someone does take physical liberties with our team, we got guys to respond now. And yet nobody did. Nobody did. And that to me is a little bit disheartening too, if I'm a Leaf fan. So, but credit to Florida. They've made themselves loud and clear. They've made themselves heard loud and clear that they are here not to just beat the Boston Bruins. They're here to make a run. They're here to win multiple series. They're here to win a Stanley Cup. And now we're going to have to see Sunday what this Leaf team is made of. And it starts with the core 4. They need way more out of Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and William Nylander than they've gotten so far in this series. And as I said on Twitter and posted earlier this morning, you want the shining graphic, the perfect illustration of what we saw from the Toronto Maple Leafs last night in the playoffs, in that game last night. Let's get it up on the screen here. There we go. There, right there. That's your Leafs last night in Game 2 loss. Soft. That's a live look right there. The top players of the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 2. Perfect illustration right there. Nice and soft, 2-ply soft right there in that game last night. Jimmy Murphy, good to hear from him. I was going to say see him, but good to hear from him. Jimmy, thoughts on the Panthers Leafs last night? Obviously, to me, Toronto had the start I expected and the start they wanted, but you can't make these flimsy plays with the puck and expect to win a playoff hockey game. And man, they paid the ultimate price early in the second period for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what's going on with the video guys for Toronto. I mean, you would think they watched video after video of what this team did to the Boston Bruins. They're doing the exact same thing. There's nothing different I'm seeing out there right now from the Panthers in this series. No different look. They are who they are. They're coming at you and they're saying, beat us if you can. And, much like the Bruins, I agree with you, Ian. I think there needs to be a little more physical pushback to some of the shenanigans that the Panthers are pulling, that they did pull against the Bruins as well. But at the same time, I also, it's the same old story in Toronto. Where's their big guns? I mean, step up. Time to lead, Austin Matthews. Mitch Marner, you had an amazing season. Time to lead, Mitch Marner.
That didn't look like a fucking Frank Selke Trophy Award nominee with that little giveaway he had in the second period. Are you shitting me? That guy's a Selke nominee?
I know. It's unreal. And, and I'm not just knocking the Leafs because the Bruins had the same issues. Their leaders didn't lead. And I'm including Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand in that conversation. I know we'll get to that, that dissecting the Bruins, and we'll have a little Irish wake for them, and I'll pull out some Jameson. But look, it's the same thing right now. The big guns got to step up. And when the big guns stepped up for the Bruins in that series, they tended to have a better chance at winning. I thought, look, what are you going to do about that Game 6? And the same last night. I mean, if they get the littlest bit more contributions from their big guns, I think Toronto wins that game. But they're invisible right now, and they're too rattled. And that's what I saw in that series. Florida, to me, out of teams I've watched in the playoffs, I'd say since 2019, when the Blues won the Cup, I haven't seen a team that's able to rattle the opposing team and the opposing team's coach in terms of how they adapt and how they react within a series. this is the first time since that Blues team that won the Cup. And for you bettors out there, get the good value while you still can. Throw in a little one on the Panthers to win the Cup right now, because there's a very good possibility they do it. I know it sounds crazy to a lot of people right now, but you look at this team right now, man, when you can just see it, certain teams, when they get on that roll, there's nothing that's going to stop them. And that's where the Florida Panthers are right now.
Team of destiny is a phrase that's often thrown out there, especially when teams get red hot at the right time of year.
Yep.
It kind of feels that way right now with the Panthers. And people thought that maybe they'd be a one-hit wonder when they knocked off Boston in stunning fashion. And right now they're proving that's not the case. They're proving that they just are finding their game at the right time. It is a hard, and you know what it is? The forecheck is intense. It makes mistakes. They're in on you. They don't give you time and space, and they're playing at a higher degree of physicality right now. And when the Leafs, and a lot, I find that in the third period when they were pressing the Leafs, they were much better in the third than they were in the second, and they nearly tied that game. But it seemed like they were rushing shots, rushing passes, and that's because of the threat of the physicality and that Panthers team just bearing down on you, which is what they did against Boston. It makes you rush things, or it makes you hesitate. So the shot is not clean off your stick. And we've seen that from the Leafs. Matthews has been known to rip the shot, top corner, pick the, corner of the net. And last night in that third period, I think because of the threat of the, Panthers player, checking him and getting the puck, or him turning it over because of that threat, he's just shooting it along the ice, making it an easy save for Bobrovsky. It's those little things, and it's the Panthers making them rush their shot, rush that pass, hesitate a little bit, overthink things. Panthers are making them do that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And look, not that it was a real similar situation to what you just described, but I even look, we can debate this physical encounter all we want with what happened with Bennett and Matthew Knees, and I do think it was dirty. But the fact is, does Knees get hurt if he's not already hesitating and thinking about what's coming and thinking about the physicality that he's about to encounter? That's what they're making you do. They're making you hesitate. And so when you hesitate in hockey, you're not, full speed ahead. That's when you get hurt or you make a mistake. So that's what they're doing. They are in their heads. And I saw it for 7 games with the Bruins. They, like I said, they rattle you, and you can't recover. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. There is good news for Toronto fans, and here's your ray of hope for this series. You have been terrific on the road, and this has been the road-dominated playoffs so far, no question. Toronto went 3-0 in Tampa Bay in the first round. They won all 3 games down there. They're going to have to win both. Simple as that. In Florida, Sunday and next Wednesday, and there's going to be a nice gap now between the next 2 games. We won't see Game 3 until Sunday, and then Game 4 in Florida isn't until next Wednesday. So this is an opportunity here for the Leafs. Are going to be on the road now for a long time, because I think they're probably going to leave for Florida tomorrow, and so they'll be down in Florida Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is a chance for them to come together as a group, and this is probably the perfect time for it for them. And rally the troops, come out strong in Game 3. I'll be honest, Jimmy, right now my first thought is, Game 1 or Game 2 last night, I love the first period look for Toronto. I'll probably be on it again in Game 3, on Sunday, because it's going to be do or die for them. They're going to have to come out strong again. And, I did, and I said I would, and I'm a man of my word on this show, Jimmy. I said yesterday that if Florida goes up 2-0, and I'm seeing it right now, the adjusted series price, and it's tough now with the way Florida's playing. Maybe they're going to win this series. It's a team of destiny, but I said I would grab a sliver of Toronto at the plus number, and I've done that. I took a little plus 245 adjusted series price on Toronto, knowing how good they've been on the road. It's a decent price. They've been at their best away from the mortuary known as Scotiabank Arena throughout these playoffs. So to me, it's not over yet, but Toronto has to show that same road prowess they showed against the Lightning.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that out. That's 2 great points by you, and I want to address the scheduling too. But first, in terms of Florida at home, don't forget, Ian, Florida lost games 3 and 4 to the Bruins at home. The Bruins outplayed them completely in those games.
Yep.
At FLA Live Arena. And then you look at game 6, if Linus Ullmark didn't become a giant sieve, the Bruins clinched that series in that game. I mean, how many times are you going to see the Bruins score 5 goals and not win, right?
Bruins should have went 3-0 in Florida.
Yeah,
in that series.
Exactly.
Yep.
So if Linus Ullmark could stop a beach ball, they would be playing right now in the second round against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the series would be headed back to Toronto. So, they have had their trouble on home ice, and I think and we start with the Blues. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I remember it. They weren't that great on home ice in that series, especially in that Stanley Cup final. The Bruins won more games in St. Louis than they did at home. So their game is the prototypical road game. It is catered to playing on the road, right? It's that just keep it simple, hustle, beat the shit out of the opponent, and catch your breaks and make the best of them. And that's what they do. And that's, if they come out of a first period 0-0, they're feeling pretty good. And then they go from there. That's the way you do it on the road. And so maybe they're having trouble, and this will benefit the Leafs. Maybe they do have trouble keeping that road mentality at home. And the other thing now, Ian, and that's a good thing, I didn't think about this, but you brought it up, that scheduling gap. When you're a team that's won 5 in a row and you are riding the emotions high right now, you are rolling. You don't want to stop. You want to keep playing tomorrow, so that could really turn the tables there and affect the Panthers in a negative way there. Yeah, it's great. They get to nurse their injuries and get healthier, but that could affect them right now because I've seen it. I keep going back to 2019. I apologize to be repetitive, but even that year, if you recall, the Bruins swept the Hurricanes in the conference final, right? And I don't know if you remember, they had 14, almost 2 weeks. I think it was 12 or 13 days off in between the conference final and the Stanley Cup. And St. Louis comes in flying high from a long, crazy series in their conference final and kept the momentum going. So these gaps can hurt the team with the momentum.
That is a great point because, one thing about Florida, game 5, and then every other day, game 6, every other day, game 7 against Boston. Then they went right in again, just a 1 day in between to game 1, Toronto, 1 day in between game 2, Toronto. Now there's 2 days, and now you're sitting on things a little bit and everybody's pumping you up, hearing about how great you've been playing.
And Ian, we know too, I would say now some might argue, and maybe I'm a little partisan because this is the sport I cover, but NHLers, I think, out of all the 4 pro sports athletes, are the biggest creatures of habit and routine. And when that routine gets broken up just the slightest bit, they're in trouble.
Yeah, so that's a fascinating game 3. You can already tell I'm kind of leaning Toronto in some fashion in game 3, but boy, I might just stick to first period like I did the other night after what I saw yesterday. After that second period, they just thought after 1 period, hey, it was such a great period, we're going to win this game, and they just turned their brains off with just dumbass turnovers and giveaways right at the beginning of the second period that fueled Florida, and they took advantage of it. The other game last night was Seattle and Dallas. A great response from the Dallas Stars. Now, unlike Toronto, Dallas did put 60 minutes on the board. And 3 pretty good periods last night. And what I found, Jimmy, with that game is Dallas in the first game, initially they had trouble adjusting to Seattle's overall speed, the 4 lines of wave that they can roll at you, especially comparing Seattle to Minnesota, Dallas's first-round opponent. You could tell it was an adjustment for the Stars, just the increase in pace and speed that Seattle was bringing to this series compared to Minnesota. Struggled with it. Obviously not the best night defensively or for Ottinger, but he's bounced back. Jake Ottinger, man. Don't ever bet against this guy off a loss or off a subpar game, and he did it again last night. He was much better. The whole team was better in containing Seattle. I think they needed that 1-game adjustment to really get a grasp of what Seattle brought to the table, and they were much better against the Kraken and that speed and that 4 lines of depth they rolled out, and they get a nice 4-2 win in Game 2 last night, and they even up that series 1-1. That being said, this is going to be a punch-counterpunch type of series. It felt like it was a pretty good situation for Dallas, and now it's up to Seattle. How do they adjust going back home to Climate Pledge Arena for Game 3 on Sunday night? But I still like Dallas, Jimmy, in the series to win that series, but it'll be a tough one. It'll be a long series. It'll be a competitive series, and as we've seen with the Kraken in these playoffs, they won't go away.
No, they won't. And look, I got to see the Kraken up close and personal here when they came into TD Garden. And at the time, were they the first home loss for the Bruins? I feel like they were. I feel like they were the first home loss of the season some point in January.
Yep.
The Boston Bruins. And one thing I noticed about them,
Definitely the first regulation loss.
okay,
Bruins
yeah.
at home. Yeah.
So I think the one thing I noticed about, yeah, you're right. It was the first regulation, not the first loss overall. So they can roll 4 lines, and each line has a different personality. So they're coming at you with different looks all the time, and you really line to line, shift to shift, you have to be ready to adapt. And I think when you look, you made a good comparison there. Like Minnesota, you know, is their bottom? I don't think their bottom 6 is as good as Seattle's. So I think that's an adjustment right there. And then the goaltending, like you said, I mean, they got a bad goal from a bad game, benefited off a bad game from Minnesota's goaltending. It wasn't answering the bell the next game like a Jake Ottinger is going to do every time he loses. So, this is an interesting series. I think that a lot of people obviously still look at Dallas as the favorite, and I agree with them. But at the same time, I still think it goes longer than people expected.
Yeah, I mean it's I think it's going to be a long, tough series too. I think it's Dallas in a long one, which is pretty much what I said before
Yeah.
the series started. But the Kraken again, if it does get to Game 7, obviously the Kraken showed they could win a Game 7 on the road. But we'll see how it goes game by game. But I definitely think now it's going to be interesting as Dallas cracked the code, because I thought defensively they were much better at what Seattle was throwing at them. And again, Bjorkstrand, who had been really starting to roll, was very much not impactful last night. That was impressive to see. They really contained him in particular. And again, the Dallas big guns, they stepped up. Your guy again, Jimmy, Tyler Seguin, finding the back of the net again there for the Stars last night. And this Wyatt Johnston kid, man, who scored a key goal for them to really separate themselves from the Seattle Kraken. He's had just a remarkable year. I'm incredibly impressed with how at 19 years old, rookie straight out from the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL last year, to now in the NHL, totally didn't even go down to the AHL for any length of time, right up to the NHL, and how comfortable he looks in the NHL and how impactful he's been. And it certainly doesn't hurt his cause that he gets to room with Joe Pavelski. Apparently, he's been staying with Joe Pavelski all season long. So learning from a guy like that certainly helps. But Wyatt Johnston, a terrific season. And of course, Joe Pavelski, come on, Joe. You only scored 1 goal last night. That's not good enough. Where's your 4 goals? Come on. You got to be better than that.
Yeah.
But no, he was good again. He got on the board. Not 4, but 1. And that's still a good night.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, credit to my old friend and guy I was lucky enough to cover, Mark Savard, for the coaching job he did with Wyatt there in Windsor. Look, this team too, going back to Seguin, I mean, I hope people have been taking your advice, Ian. You were the one who kind of brought it to my attention, how he was really turning this game on. And we haven't always seen that for Tyler Seguin in the playoffs. I mean, It's kind of hot and cold a lot, and sometimes I and rightfully so, people would question his effort and his heart, but not the case now. He looks like a leader out there. And, I think it's good timing for them because, look, I know he scored last night, but overall, we can agree that Jamie Benn isn't what he once used to be.
Yep.
And I think it can help him to have not only have another leader's voice, but to have a leader that can lead through his actions too, not just his mouth. And I think that's happening right now with Tyler Seguin for the Dallas Stars. So, Seattle's in tough, but I still think they're going to have a gutsy effort, and I think this thing goes at least 6. Yeah,
definitely. And JT in the chat makes a great point, and I've been harping on it. It's bothered me when broadcasters I've heard call him Wyatt Johnston. Johnston. Okay, there's a T in there. Johnston. Very important. Yeah, get it right.
Wyatt Johnston.
I hear that all the time. People, Wyatt Johnson, Wyatt Johnston, Wyatt Johnson. Johnston.
I'm just gonna call him Wyatt.
Yeah, exactly. Johnston is his name. Damn it, get it right. But 1-1. That's a good series. I'm enjoying it. But we're going to talk New Jersey, Carolina in just a moment. But first, we're going to do a little Bruins here because this is our first time to talk to Jimmy since the end of the Bruins season here on this show. Because again, that game was Sunday, Game 7 with the Panthers and the Bruins. Look, just stunning, and maybe not so stunning now after seeing Florida get a 2-0 series lead here in the second round against Toronto. But just surprising. And I'll tell you what. People have, bashed Pierre Maguire, and I heard him actually, and it was on Montreal radio, I think the day you were on, Jimmy, last week with your buddy Mitch Milnick, and I just happened to listen to it, tune it in, and he said something that nobody brought up. Nobody brought up as a reason. This is a reason why Boston lost the series. Their 4 centers, they're all over the age of 30. All right, all 4 of them. 2 of them, Bergeron and Krejci, 38 and 39, in terms of age. Those 2 guys as well, playing less than 100%. Playing through injury. And you've got this physical, hard forechecking, tenacious forechecking Panthers team leaning on them for 7 fucking games in a row. These older centers, these guys that are playing less than 100%, Bergeron and Krejci with so many playoff miles and wars and games that have taxed the body all these years, it kind of made a lot of sense to me. They just got worn down by this Florida Panthers team, got under their skin and wore them down in the course of 7 games. And that's exactly what we saw. And like I say, Jimmy, disappointing. I know they are back in Boston, and there's lots of reasons why. I don't think the offense was ever a big issue. I think they scored enough goals. The power play was good, certainly in Game 7, but I think the foundation of the Bruins all year was their 1 through 6 defensively. They were as good as it gets. The penalty kill was number 1. It wasn't as good when it needed to be against Florida. The defensive breakdowns, the sloppiness with the puck, the turnovers. You know what I was stunned by too in Game 7, Jimmy, is they couldn't complete a crisp tape-to-tape pass. It was stunning. The puck was bouncing. It was bobbling, mishandled pucks. Couldn't get it to settle down. Couldn't get it to be in a position where you could get a clean shot at net. The passes weren't clicking. It was just a completely discombobulated Game 7 from the Boston Bruins, and yet there they were, 3-2 in the third, chance to close out that series, and somehow Montour, who's been incredible, ties it up with less than a minute to go. Heartbreaking, and at that moment I said, Boston's in trouble. Like, is anybody from a momentum standpoint feeling good about the Bruins winning this game in overtime now after giving up that tying goal? And sure enough for Hagee, bad coverage on him, rips it past Swayman for the series and game-winning goal in Game 7. But, yeah, like I said, I think the Pierre Maguire point about the older centers, 30 years of age and older, and 2 of them in their late 30s and less than 100%, Bergeron and Krejci, was a great point. I mean, the blue line, it was I don't want to say McAvoy was bad, but I think he could have been better. And then Lindholm, my goodness, disappointing. I know Orlov threw a couple of points on the board in that series, but I think his defensive play was suspect throughout that series. Clifton, as you mentioned, in Game 6, had that awful game in Florida. And just the collective blue line, Jimmy, the foundation of what made the Bruins so great in the regular season, that great blue line, it really crumbled in the playoffs and in that series at the worst time. And just a stunning end to what was a phenomenal season, Jimmy. Have at it.
Well, listen, I'm going to play a little clip for you. I hope you can hear it, but this is basically my summary about the Bruins.
I mean, we just the Bears are what we thought they were. What we thought they were.
Can you hear it?
We played them in the third game.
I think and
we played them in the third game.
They are what we thought they were.
This is Jimmy Denny Green with us, Murphy, right now on the Ice Guys. Yeah.
Listen, I told you coming into this season, I looked at the Bruins as a team that would either just make it into the playoffs or a team that would just miss it. They totally made me eat crow in the regular season, but when it came down to it, they were exactly what I thought they were when the playoffs hit. And the other thing, too, they're actually, I shouldn't say exactly, because I almost felt like in that series, and you were just bringing it up about all the different characteristics of the Bruins team that we saw all year kind of disappearing. It's almost like let me ask you this, Ian, when you look at the Florida Panthers before this playoff, did you think of them as a tenacious, forechecking, defensive-minded team with great goaltending? You think of them as the high-flying Panthers that are going to run and gun, lots of finesse, lots of skill? The latter, right?
The latter, and Paul Maurice was brought in to help them transition to become more of a physical, forechecking team. That's what he came here to, and cycle team, cycle the puck. Don't just try to rush up and down and trade chances with the other team. And they weren't playing well, adjusting to that style change early in the year, but man, did they figure it out at the right time.
And who looked more like the Florida Panthers?
Yeah,
the Bruins. It was like reversal of teams, man. It was like the Bruins took on the Panthers' identity, and the Panthers said, "Okay, we'll be you." And basically, the Bruins got beat by themselves in terms of style of play and the systems that were used, they looked like the Bruins did all season. You're absolutely right. And so it's, in a moment and right after it happened, I was still like, what the hell just happened? And it was just like surreal. But then when you take a step back, and of course, like you said, now that you can watch those 2 games in Toronto and really, kind of look at the little things that the Panthers are doing, I'm covering a game. I don't see all that as well. Like I'd be able to watch a game with you, a neutral game that I'm not working as a reporter, and I'll be able to pick it apart a lot better the first time because I don't have to write. I'm not on deadline. I don't have this going on. I don't have that. So when I had a chance to step back and really analyze what I just witnessed, that's the theme I got. That and the fact that, Jim Montgomery suddenly, I don't know what happened. Suddenly he became an ECHL coach. He was brutal. Hands down, Jim Montgomery got completely outcoached and embarrassed by Paul Maurice. It was, I've never seen a coach struggle more in game and game by game to adapt than I saw Jim Montgomery in that series. And look, it's hilarious because I think they're all a bunch of hypocrites, but you got all these people who were high-fiving and loving the fact that they canned Bruce Cassidy and brought in this guy who's going to be much more player-friendly and he's going to be more up-tempo and let the defense jump into the offense more and blah, 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 blah.
And they had that incredible start, and everyone's getting excited. Like, look at the change in the Bruins here. Yeah.
Those same people that said that are now calling for Jim Montgomery's job here. I live, honestly, out of sports markets in North America, they are the biggest entitled hypocrites I've ever seen. It's ridiculous how they can just pretend that never happened. Like, no, we never said it. Really? Because I've got it right here. I've got the audio recording of you celebrating Bruce Cassidy's firing, and now you're saying that they need him back and they need to fire Montgomery. It's hilarious. Yeah. But that being said, I think Bruce Cassidy fares better in this series against the Panthers than Jim Montgomery would have. He was exposed, and I think one of the biggest things he was exposed on, Ian, and look, I don't fault him for it, but there comes a time when you have to put your foot down and you can't always be the player's best buddy. That's what an assistant coach is, not a head coach. An assistant coach can be that middle guy, that conduit to the dressing room. The assistant coach can play the good cop more often, not the head coach. Sometimes you got to be like Daryl Sutter. Not all the time, but sometimes you got to be like Daryl Sutter. And while he might have said things to them internally, once in a while, he should have said to us, they sucked. That's it. Plain and simple, we sucked. The amount of, I love these guys, and it's such an honor to coach them, and blah, 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 blah. Enough of the hunky-dory stuff, man. Come out and rip them. Just like we just heard Dennis Green there. Sometimes you need to come out. Look at Paul Maurice, what he did in Toronto on the bench there.
Publicly, in front of everybody.
Yeah. And that did it.
You're playing like fucking bitches, he said multiple times. Yeah.
And I'm sure the P word was used in the locker room. I mean, it's just sometimes you got to tell it like it is, Jimbo. And he didn't do that. And I thought that hurt them because he leaned too much on Bergeron and Krejci as being kind of his Reg Dunlops, so to speak, player coaches there. And, when it came down to it and he needed to actually coach himself when they weren't in the lineup, he couldn't. So that's my take on that series. I hope it was I don't think he's going to get fired, nor do I think he should get fired. No. But I think he needs to really take this, and I'm sure he will.
It's a learning experience for him.
Yeah, let's not forget what Jim Montgomery's done off the ice, Ian, right?
Yeah.
With what he's done battling alcoholism and turning his life around.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's the type of guy that's not going to take this and translate it into making himself a better coach. He will apply what he learned over the summer and reevaluate himself and come back a stronger coach. But for now, he got outcoached.
I think next year now, because it'll be his second year with the team, he'll have a better idea of who he's coaching now, and with a more of a grown relationship with the players, just because he's been around them now longer. I guarantee you, not only is he going to learn a little bit from what went wrong and maybe too much Mr. Nice Guy, I guarantee you next year, if they have a slump at some point during the season, he will go off in a press conference at some point. I'm going to say it right now. He will. He'll have one of those moments next year. I think, which we didn't see last year. I think he will.
What if Bergeron and Krejci are still here? See, I wonder if that's what's holding him back. Like, and that's another thing we could talk about and
That's
quickly
true.
is just, I really want to see those guys back. I'm going to miss covering them. They're great human beings. And I really didn't
I
want to
honestly
see them.
think Bergeron is going to retire. I mean, that seemed pretty final with the way that ended after
Well,
Game
he
7.
did that last year, though, Ian,
Yeah,
eh?
yeah,
In Carolina, on the ice in
yeah,
Raleigh at RBC Center, whatever
yeah,
the hell they call it now, or PNC, whatever it is.
yeah,
He did that same exact thing last year, and
yeah,
Brad Marchand came out and met us after the game, and he was bawling, thinking it was over, and then it wasn't. So who
yeah,
knows? And you got to factor in too. I think Krejci's definitely gone, based on
yeah,
the combo we had with him at the breakup day the other day. I think he's gone.
yeah.
But right now, I'm kind of up in the air with Bergeron. I think he should retire. To be honest, I don't think he has much left to prove. But the fact it's a centennial season, the fact he went out the way he did, I don't know. He's got a lot of pride, but it depends where his health is at, obviously. But we'll see. But going back to Montgomery, he's got to set the law down in camp. When he arrives, he's going to make it clear who the boss is.
Yeah.
Because I felt at times the inmates were running the asylum there.
Yeah, and like I say, it'll be interesting. Would he have a game where you say we sucked and we got to be better? That was totally unacceptable in a press conference with Bergeron there next year, or would he still do it with Bergeron there, something like that, or would it have to be he maybe is gone now and then maybe he'll say something like that publicly when his team doesn't play well? And let's be honest, they didn't play well. They didn't play up to their standard in the first round, not the standard we saw from the Boston Bruins, certainly throughout the regular season. But yeah, some interesting decisions on the way as far as the Bruins are concerned, and it'll be interesting. And Jimmy will do a great job, of course, keeping tabs on all of it over at Boston Hockey Now. And I mentioned earlier in the show, Jimmy, this National Hockey Now site, it's growing. I'm very impressed to see how many team sites are launching, how many writers have been hired and brought on board. We've got, Capitals and Islanders, and there's a Vegas site. I mean, it's just Nashville. I mean, it's growing, and it's really good to see for the company, for the network.
Yeah, it's great. We're really excited about it. Chicago's another one we just added. We're going to add unfortunately, we can't get the Devils up and running until after the season's over, which kind of stinks because I got to feel, we can talk about it in a bit. I kind of like them still in that series over Carolina. But just because of contractual reasons with the writer we're bringing in, it cannot happen. But look, Chicago, I think, is a great site for everyone out there to check because, I mean, they've as we speak, they have the best shot at landing the man, Connor Bedard. I mean, we'll see in a week. We'll see at the lottery. But was it Tuesday? Are they doing it?
It's going to be Monday night, the draft lottery.
Yeah, so we'll find out then. But I mean, either way, this is a team that's going to be probably one of the hot button teams leading into the draft and after it. So really looking forward to the coverage there. So yeah, we're psyched. A lot of good things going on. As we tell the listeners, we tell our viewers here, Ian, it. I mean, there's no off season really in hockey. My off season comes just like for you in handicapping. I maybe will get a couple weeks in August, and that's it. Yep. So I'm still full steam ahead. Come check me out at Boston Hockey Now. There's a lot of things I've been jotting down, tons of ideas, analysis. I want to look into and write about, and I'm working the phones already. I mean, the off season's begun for the Boston Bruins, so I'll do my best to keep you guys in the loop of what's going on.
Yeah, and you know what? Jimmy's cut from the same cloth as the man that runs that site, Dan Kongursky. If they do any more writing, their hand and their arm will fall off or something. I mean, it's amazing how much content. I mean,
thank you.
Put out there, he puts out there. Yeah.
Yeah, he told me the other day. I didn't even realize it. I guess you just, when you get in that groove, he's like, you wrote 105 stories in April. Whoa. Okay.
No,
give me
good.
That? No.
Hey, it keeps it brings people back to the site to read it, and that's part of it too. The more content you put out, the more readers will come to read it and see it. So that's what it's all about. We're coming to read and see tonight what's going to happen here with New Jersey and Carolina. It's game 2, Devils Hurricanes. We got Carolina minus 115 home favorites, 5.5 the total in this one. And like I said, when I say something on this show, I follow through. I don't say it and then, not follow through on it and decide I'm not doing something. I said if New Jersey loses game 1, I am taking an adjusted series price on the New Jersey Devils to win the series. I'm not giving up on the Devils just yet. Was that a bad game one from them? Absolutely it was. No question. Coming off the Rangers series, I underestimated maybe kind of just, beating the Rangers. They didn't have that, carryover that Florida had coming off a Game 7 win. New Jersey didn't. And Carolina played excellent defense. Terrific. Shut down Hughes, shut down all the top players of the Devils. They didn't have the puck, New Jersey, in Game 1. I mean, they barely had 2 shots on goal by halfway through that game. I mean, it was just a clinic defensively by the Carolina Hurricanes. And New Jersey just didn't have their legs. They didn't have the puck enough there in Game 1. So I expect the Devils to be better. It is concerning that I was debating, do I wait maybe until Game 3? Maybe Carolina goes up 2-0, because the one little concern I have, and is Carolina's been awesome at home, in the playoffs. Last year they were. This year, again, they've been very strong on home ice, and I wouldn't put it past them to go up 2-0, but I also know the Devils have been a very good road team all season long, and I said before the series, I still don't think Carolina will take both home games here to begin this series. So at plus 150, plus 152 is actually the price I got with New Jersey, adjusted series price. I took a little bit of that. I mean, if I were to play Game 2 individually here tonight, I would lean Devils, but again, I've taken the plus 152 with them at an adjusted series price, and I feel I'm just going to stick with that. I would lean Devils here in Game 2. Maybe I'll put a couple of bucks just on them individually here in Game 2, at minus 105 in this game. Probably also might look at the Devils team total. It is cheap. I mean, it's only 2.5, and it's even money, with the Devils team total. I do think you'll see a better performance from them, make their adjustments here, even with a very good, tight defensive team like the Carolina Hurricanes are. Plus, I want to mention another thing. New Jersey did not draw enough penalties in Game 1. They were in the box a lot more than Carolina was. I think maybe that has a chance to even out here tonight in this game. I'm also going to have a small look again at over 5.5. And I can tell you that Alex B. Smith, who's not on today, but this is actually his best bet on this game tonight. It's Devils Hurricanes over 5.5 here at a nice plus price. You can get plus 115 to plus 120 with over 5.5 in this game. We're not asking much right now for this to get up and over the total here. It's plus money. It got over in Game 2 in spite of the fact that it was a 5-1 final score. And as we saw too in Game 1, Lindy Ruff pulling the goalie down by 3. Don't forget to factor that. In fact, Brind'Amour is also a goalie, or a coach rather, that'll pull the goalie down 3. So 5.5 looks a little bit cheap to me again. And I expect the Devils to be much more aggressive, assertive, at the offensive end of the ice. We're still going to have the same goalie matchup, by the way. There was some talk whether the Devils would go back to Akira Schmid, but again, he's had a really good playoff so far. He didn't have a great Game 6. He got pulled in that game. How did we see him respond in Game 7 against the Rangers? He shut him out. He played great. Kind of the same thinking here with the Devils. Yes, not a great game from Schmid, but not a great game for the whole team in Game 1 against Carolina. They're coming right back to him. It's the right call. Give Schmid a chance to bounce back. He did it in Game 7 after the rough Game 6 against the Rangers, and they're giving him that chance to do it here tonight. I'll get into props in just a moment. Jimmy, what do you think here? Game 2, New Jersey, Carolina.
I'm with you. Everything you just said, and pretty much in a nutshell. I think it's a great reasoning, and I agree with all of it. I think the one thing that maybe Jersey wasn't ready for was what you mentioned off the get-go there, is just that suffocating defense for Carolina. When they start to swarm, they're one of the best in the league. And what I mean by swarm is when they're just coming down, much like we talked about Florida, when they're just coming down on you with that forecheck, or they're making you think twice and you make mistakes. They're one of the best teams, and they have been for a while. And, I saw it firsthand in that 7-game series last year against the Bruins, and that's how they beat the Bruins. And, that's how they're playing right now in the second round and considered a Stanley Cup contender. But I do like the Devils in this. I think this is going to be a long series. I have picked the Devils in 6. I still think it could go 7-2, but I'm not going to veer away. I'm not going to jump off the Devils bandwagon by any means. I think the Devils are there for a reason. There were question marks. Were they too young? Would they crumble under the spotlight of the playoffs? So were they just going to be happy to be there? Clearly they're not. Clearly they have bigger goals in mind. It wasn't just making the playoffs. So I think they bounce back tonight. I'm really feeling an overtime. So I'm going to throw something down on the draw in this, guys. And I'm also going to take the Devils money line to win.
Yeah, I don't mind the draw look either. I think it's a tight game tonight. I think it's probably a 1-goal game. And Carolina's not immune to playing these in the playoffs, these tighter games. I think we're going to see that here tonight. As far as the props go for this game, be careful with this is I don't think going to be I think it has again we can get over the total, but I also don't expect like a 5-4, 6-5 game either. So make sure if you're looking at goal props and point props, assist props, you be selective. You don't want to hammer the board with those, but there are a lot of shots on goal props that I like here in this game. And look, they addressed it after game one. Lindy said it. Jack Hughes said it. Dougie Hamilton said it. We didn't have the puck enough. We've just got to make a point of it to, have better puck plays with the puck, have it up more on our stick. And that's the problem. That's why they didn't have many shots the other night. So I'd expect a little more aggression there. Plus, let's be honest, it was a very easy night, very comfortable night for Freddie Anderson for the Carolina Hurricanes in net. You've got to get more traffic. You got to make life more difficult on him. I still think he's, especially at playoff time, Frederick Anderson's track record hasn't been spectacular, especially in those Toronto days. We'll see what he's made of. And he just hasn't played enough playoff hockey here in Carolina due to injuries, including last year, to really tell if he's that kind of playoff goalie that can get hot and lead his team to victory. So I think pepper the net with shots a lot more tonight if you're New Jersey. So I would focus on Hughes, Hamilton, Hischier, really as guys to, and Hischier in particular, his shots volume has really gone up of late. So definitely Hughes, Hischier, Hamilton would look toward them as far as shots on goal. I'm going back to the well, Jimmy, on the Carolina side with Natchez shots on goal, with Aho shots on goal, and especially Brent Burns. Over 3.5 shots on goal with him. Do you know why that is? Because he has been flying over his shot prop, and he must have had like 10 shot attempts in game one, and yet he only had 2 shots on goal. It was just one of those nights where Brent Burns the scope of his rifle was off. He was missing the net with like 7 or 8 of his shot attempts, and if even he hits the net with half of those, he goes over 3.5 shots on goal in game one. So I'm coming right back to the Brent Burns over 3.5. Shots on goal here tonight in this one. And as far as if I'm going to look toward goal props, Aho had a bunch of chances. He hit a post the other night. I could see him finding the back of the net tonight. Natchez too for Carolina. And then on the New Jersey side, you got to go with the guys that you trust the most who have gotten it done. I still think Eric Halla, is one of the leading goal and point producers in the playoffs for the Devils. He's a good bargain bin option, but I think Hughes can bounce back, find the back of the net here tonight for the Devils. The goal prop for him, I'd consider. You also look at Andre Palat was quiet in game one. Usually when the team is, they're not that their backs are against the wall, but they'd really like to get this series tied. And Andre Palat and his historically great playoff performances dating back to his time with Tampa Bay definitely could look in that regard. And yeah, Seth Jarvis, who scored for them the other night for Carolina, he can be streaky sometimes, and he's been kind of in an offensive drought. And he finally scored a goal for them on a beautiful goal in game one. That maybe sometimes we look at Seth Jarvis as one of those guys that can score in bunches. He usually is. So Seth Jarvis may be worth a look here in tonight's game as well if you're looking at a goal scorer prop. Another thing I think that New Jersey struggled with, not just Carolina's defense, but the Rangers never got to the tough areas, the dirt, the blue paint, the crease area, the slot. The Rangers didn't get there enough, and it was too easy for the Devils in those areas. Carolina was getting to those areas way more than the New York Rangers were. The slot area, in front of the net, traffic, taking away the eyes of Akira Schmid, making it more difficult. And they went to the areas you need to go to score goals at playoff time. Let's see how the Devils, adjust defensively to a much more assertive, let's be honest, a tougher Carolina team compared to the Rangers. Rangers played too soft. Rangers played too much perimeter hockey against the New Jersey Devils. Carolina did not play that way in game one. They were going to those hard areas where you have to pay the price to score goals. Carolina did a good job of that in game one, and let's see if they can duplicate that here tonight in game two. And that's the only game on the slate tonight is game two. Jimmy, we'll do the ads and we'll do best bets and we'll wrap up the show in just a moment. But since you're only with us on Fridays, we'll fast forward. The Edmonton-Vegas game Saturday, and we've got the 3 games coming up on, the other New Jersey-Carolina is Sunday, so we won't talk about that, but game 3. But Toronto-Florida game 3, Seattle-Dallas game 3 on Sunday, Edmonton-Vegas game 2 tomorrow night on Saturday. What are you thinking when it comes to those games?
Well, I'm thinking, any reason, part of my ignorance, that why only one game tonight? Is it because
It
they don't
is
want to go at the
because
end?
Edmonton Vegas was supposed to be tonight initially, and it was supposed to be a
Okay.
doubleheader, building conflict at T-Mobile Arena, and they had to play it tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Gotcha. So as far as that game goes tomorrow, look, I'll tell you, man. Like, I know, how can you say this when Leon Draisaitl got 4 goals? But other than that, I thought they did a great job of shutting down McDavid. I don't think he got 2 assists. I know, but I think you kind of like nowadays when you play McDavid, you just say, all right, if we can limit him to a couple assists, maybe 1 goal, we're good. We'll get by. That's just how good he is. And they did that. And I really love Bruce Cassidy's coaching in that game, really adapted on the fly well. There were so many points where I thought it could just swing and Edmonton was going to take off in that game and just blow them out, but they didn't. And, Vegas has got some depth, man. I mean, much like we were talking about earlier, Seattle, the way he can roll those lines too. And I think that's really what helps them a lot. And that's why they are where they are right now. That being said, I'm going to go the other way. I think the Oilers bounce back with a win in overtime, another draw for me. So I'm going to take Oilers money line and also the draw in that game.
Oilers and draw for the game tomorrow night with the Oilers and Golden Knights. And then the Sunday games, Toronto, Florida, Seattle, or Dallas at Seattle. The game 3 is coming up on Sunday. What's your initial lean with those right now?
Well, I love your first period on the Leafs. I love that. I'm going to definitely jump on that because I think for sure, as we discussed before, this long break kind of takes the rhythm out of sync there for the Florida Panthers. I think it affects them early on, but they're the type of team that can adapt and recover in game. So I'm liking that first period there. I don't know, man. I'm like an overtime freak. Give me another draw, but I don't know which way this one's going.
There you go. And good stuff there. And all right.
And then Seattle. I like Seattle in the money line. I might even go a little Jimmy Puck line on Seattle. I think that place is going to be rocking. The roof's going to come off, and it's going to go back to Seattle's favor in this one. They should be up 2-1 in the series come Monday morning.
There you go, like in Seattle, back home. Now, they haven't been the greatest home team, but again, they've got 1-1 back to Seattle, and the place will be a buzz definitely on Sunday night for Game 3 with the Stars.
And I just want to say, Ian, too, like, my buddy was saying this. We were trying to think because, you like to kind of pick teams to jump on a bandwagon a little in the playoffs and really follow. And I'm following Vegas pretty hard. I have been all year just because of my relationship with Cassidy, and I hope they do well. But he said, nah, man, you got to get on Seattle. He's like, I mean, and we can do a little plug here too, a good segue. He's like, you love your Gramco. Man, will Gramco come in handy in that parade in Seattle if they ever win it? It's just going to be a haze of the 420.
No doubt. If that comes to fruition, and we're talking
Nirvana cranking and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden.
Yeah. All those stoner rock bands from back in the grunge era there in the early 90s, an era that I loved. I loved the music back then from some of those bands. Really, really good. And still listen to this day. I love 90s alternative. I was a big 90s alternative fan. That's I'm a fan of a lot of genres. I love oldies. I love 70s stuff, 80s stuff, even the cheesy 80s pop I like.
90s hip-hop is great too.
Hip-hop, it was just the best. Nothing will top 90s hip-hop. That was as good as it gets. Alternative was good. And like I say, a little bit here and there, new music, but it's not the same in my opinion.
Were you a Beastie Boys fan?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Rest in peace, MCA. I can't. Yesterday was 11 years since he passed. Still can't believe that.
I mean, just an absolute. They were absolutely spectacular too. Illmatic, still one of the great albums, honestly, from the Beastie Boys, and just a wide range of music, and definitely a '90s alternative, and a lot of those Seattle area bands from that era were definitely some of my favorites for sure. Growing up as a kid. Great stuff, Jimmy. Awesome show today. Thanks. Hit that like button, everybody watching on YouTube. 138, 140 live viewers. Shout out to our podcast listeners as well. Make sure you check out patreon.com/Ice Guys. Just $10 a month. Goalie charts, totals charts, power ratings, our daily Ice Guys show betting card, and bonus content. I actually have a bonus piece of content that I'm putting up on the Patreon page in a little bit later today. We did an interview with former pro hockey player, junior hockey player, Colton Tubert. And we'll do that. We'll post that interview that I did with him earlier this week on the page later today. So make sure you check that out. And we've got more bonus content on the way as well. So check that out, patreon.com/iceguys, just $10 a month. And also the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. Make sure you get yourself some Ice Guys merch from the Ice Guys store. All right, we got best bets to wrap up the show coming right up after we hear from Gramco and Manscaped.
Support for the Ice Guys is brought to you by Gramco. Whether you or your team's game is on the field, screen, racetrack, court, or the ice, Gramco is for the game. Grown by farmers who spent years developing premium hemp genetics, Gramco provides customers with consistent quality Delta-8 THC products ready for any occasion. Gramco currently offers numerous Delta-8 products, including vape cartridges, disposable vapes, pre-rolls, gummies, wake and bake coffee, and more. Gramco offers an enjoyable, legal high delivered discreetly and directly to you. Gramco is also available at many American retailers as well. You can get the best Delta-8 cannabis products on the market shipped quickly and discreetly from Gramco. And if you visit www.thegramco.com, use promo code IceGuys, you will get 20% off of every order, and any order that's on the site over $50 will be shipped free with standard shipping. So live elevated with Gramco and check out their wonderful Delta-8 products today.
Support for the Ice Guys is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the promo code ICEGUYS. That's promo code ICEGUYS at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, it's about 14 million balls that you can preserve. The Performance Package 4.0 is the complete accessory package to take care of everything that is required. You've got, of course, the Lawnmower 4.0. Takes care of your facial hair and among other things. You've got, of course, the Weed Whacker. I'm approaching 40. Nose hair has become a major issue. It pisses the hell out of me. I need to take care of that shit, and the Weed Whacker can help you do that. Both of these products, waterproof and a 4000K LED spotlight for a more precise shave. And you'll also be able to take care of those delicate areas with the ball toner, with the ball deodorant, keep you smelling good, looking good, and feeling good down in the nether regions. This complete Performance Package 4.0 will take care of everything for you, for all you guys out there, and it's courtesy of our good friends at manscaped.com. So get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code IceGuys at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. And use promo code IceGuys. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. All right, it's time for best bets here to wrap it up. Jimmy, what do you got for us for best bet?
You hear me okay, man?
We got you.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to stick with that overtime tonight. Give me the draw tonight as my best bet.
All right, there you go. A little OT in Raleigh, North Carolina. That was weak. In Raleigh, North Carolina tonight for Jimmy. Devils Hurricanes draw. And as always, I recommend if you're going to bet the draw, go to FanDuel. And it's not because I'm promoting or I'm sponsored by FanDuel. It's just because they have the best prices for the draw usually. Plus 310, by the way, is the price for the draw at FanDuel right now. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, the draw, plus 310 for Jimmy with his best bet here on this Friday card. My best bet here for this Friday, obviously there's just the one game tonight. It's Alex's best bet. It's the only game tonight, so it's going to be my best bet as well. Devils, Hurricanes, over 5.5, plus 120. It's a great price. You know, we saw game one get over the total, and that's despite minimal offensive contributions from the New Jersey Devils, who I expect to be better tonight. So I think they find the back of the net, and I think Carolina's still at home with the forechecking tenacity they have, especially in the offensive zone, which gave New Jersey problems in game one. I think they will get to the back of the net and find some goals as well. So Devils Hurricanes over 5.5, plus 120 for my best bet for tonight's Game 2 between New Jersey and Carolina. That'll wrap it up. Thanks to everyone for joining us. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Jimmy Murphy, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Friday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will talk to you again tomorrow on Saturday for our only weekend show. We're going to do all 4 weekend games on the Saturday show tomorrow at noon Eastern. So make sure you join us tomorrow on Saturday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by National Hockey Now.